Before free agency even opens up on Monday, we have one of the major names coming off the board as Naz Reid signs a new 5-year deal with the Minnesota Timberwolves. We're going to talk about that. The Philadelphia 76ers locking in a role player from their season last year as well. We're going to talk about all that and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content today. This one just dropped from Shams that Naz Reid is signing a 5-year, $125 million deal with to say with the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is one of the bigger chips that people were wondering. How is this going to all fall out? And what was going to happen with Naz Reid? Could they afford to keep Naz Reid when it comes down to it? Well, they keep him now on a deal that averages $25 million annual average value on that deal. And it's good. He also has a player option in the final year in 2029-30. But this keeps Naz Reid locked into a contract with the Minnesota Timberwolves as they're looking to hopefully continue to make upward progress in the Western Conference and keep a core around Anthony Edwards that can compete in that Western Conference. I love this deal. I think that Naz Reid is a player that, to lose Naz Reid would have been a big part of kind of the identity that the Minnesota Timberwolves are forging. And I think you need players like that. What he brings defensively, what he brings as a nice mix of offense and defense as well for this Minnesota Timberwolves team. Not to say that they couldn't necessarily find somebody to replace some of that, but Naz Reid already has chemistry with the entirety of this roster. We already know how he pairs with Anthony Edwards. You want to keep as much as you can as far as still the same around that. Averaging 14 points per game last year, 6 rebounds, 2.3 assists on 46% shooting from the field, and he shot the ball 37.9%, basically 38% from three. That was a little down from 41% the year prior, but it's not that much of a fall off to where you feel like he took almost an extra 3-pointer per game. Naz Reid is a really good player as far as what he offers offensively and defensively for this Minnesota Timberwolves team. Like I said, it would have been a big hit to the chemistry and to the makeup of the roster and to their identity that they're trying to have there to not have Naz Reid there. Now, it's not over and done. They still got to wait on what's going to happen with Julius Randle. Nickeil Alexander-Walker's another player. They got to factor in on what's going to happen here. And I'm sure that the Minnesota Timberwolves are still looking as well for any way that they can improve that roster as well. They're one of the teams that are rumored to be after a point guard this offseason, with Mike Conley kind of taking a step back. And I think if the Minnesota Timberwolves can find the right point guard to be in that backcourt with Anthony Edwards and the step up that he made as a facilitator and a 3-point shooter last year, that can go a long way in this team being much better and hopefully better equipped to kind of try to make it out the West next season. Of course, you got the defending champion OKC Thunder there. You got teams that are going to be making improvements. The Rockets have made drastic improvements to the roster as well by adding Kevin Durant. But the Minnesota Timberwolves, they keep Naz Reid there. That's one of the now names off the board for the free agency of 25. And, I would expect more of these. We're going to get more and more signings. This is the period of time where teams can re-sign their own free agent. Starting on Monday is where teams can start meeting with players from other teams, and that's where you're really going to start getting the ball rolling. So the Timberwolves avoid all of that. They lock in Naz Reid to a contract. Let me know what you guys think on this deal down below. Do you think this is the right money for Naz Reid? Do you think that it's a fair deal for both sides and that player option in the last year gives Naz Reid a little bit of decision-making over that as well? But with that said, let's move on. The Philadelphia 76ers are also a team that have re-signed a player. They re-signed Justin Edwards to a new deal after he declined they declined a $1.9 million team option for the upcoming year. This includes 2 guaranteed years. It will pay him $2 million in the 2025-26 season, which is a nice upgrade when it comes down for him as well. And this is a guy that's really 6'7", played out of Kentucky. He went undrafted in 2024. He really found and made a name for himself with that Philadelphia 76ers team last year. And this is a Sixers team that I think did really good in the draft this year. And so, keeping as much as you can together, the 76ers are still hoping, don't know how successful they're going to be, but they're still hoping that they're going to, be able to use the core of Maxey and Paul George and Joel Embiid to really take advantage of that hole left in the Eastern Conference. They're also adding VJ Edgecombe to this team as well. Johnny Broome, who they got in the second round of this. Andre Drummond recently picked up his option as well with this team to stay with this team next year also. So, they're going to have a lot of returning players while having some influx of new talent with their draft pick in VJ Edgecombe. So, Justin Edwards last year, 10 points per game, 3.4 rebounds, shot the ball 45% from the field, 36% from three, taking 4 3-pointers per game, 1 steal per game as well. And so, you get to keep Justin Edwards, a player that really had his breakout season for you last year, and you get to keep him now in your building. And so the Sixers are hoping that they're adding some depth to this team. And, they still want health from their veterans, still hoping that Joel Embiid is going to be able to stay healthy. But I tell you what, that they're starting to really put together a roster that has some really nice young talent on it, even if Joel Embiid is not fully healthy. Now, I don't think that they're competitors in the East or anything if Joel isn't healthy, but now that you have Tyrese Maxey, you have VJ Edgecombe, you have Jared McCain, who's probably going to be coming off the bench, you have that guard rotation, you add into that Justin Edwards, who you just locked in as well, a Dembana, who showed some things last season also. They're starting to have some nice players down there in Philly, and we'll see what Philly does. I know that they're hoping they're going to be really competitive next year. That remains to be seen. I don't know how competitive they're going to be in reality, but they're a team that's hoping that they're going to really be able to compete in the Eastern Conference, especially with the gap that's going to be left in the Eastern Conference with Tatum and Tyrese Maxey missing the majority of Tyrese Maxey and Tyrese Halliburton missing the majority of next season. So let's see if this is a season where the Philadelphia 76ers can finally start putting it together. With that said, it looks like the Houston Rockets are also, after re-signing Fred VanVleet, they're also trying to lock in a couple of other players to that. The role players, including Jashawn Tate, Jeff Green, and Aaron Holiday, are reaching new deals with the Houston Rockets as well. This one comes from Shams also. And the Houston Rockets, now that they have their isolation scorer, their guy that can just score when you get in the half court, when things break down, they're trying to lock in basically everything else and keep things the same. I don't know if the Houston Rockets are going to make a lot of change. There has been some talk on Cam Whitmore being a player that is garnering some interest out on the trade market, but it doesn't seem like the Rockets are looking to move him just to move him. I do think the Rockets are going to probably go into next season with, outside of the trade they made, keeping basically everything else the same, and they leave themselves some flexibility if they decide to go into the trade deadline and decide to be a little bit more active there. And I think that's smart for a team that has what the Houston Rockets have, to maintain some flexibility to make a trade deadline move with the draft picks that you have, having players like Cam Whitmore that teams could be interested in. I think it's just smart. It gives you a chance to really fill things out, where you're going to stand in the Western Conference, and it gives you a nice chunk of the season to really look at what this roster looks like and then try to supplement there. And so I think this is smart decision-making by the Rockets. Once you get Kevin Durant in, now it's just about keeping, or now how do you take that next step? They're looking at young players like, of course, Amin Thompson, Tari Eason, who I think is now going to start, especially with Dylan Brooks being gone, and how these players really step up. Jabari Smith is another guy that has a huge opportunity to step up a lot, learn behind Kevin Durant. Does Reed Shepherd get a little bit more into the rotation now as well? Those are questions around the Houston Rockets team, but they're locking in their role players, and we'll see what happens going forward. But that's my time for today. Quick update. Make sure you guys are following us at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything basketball related. And I'll see you guys the next time I feel like making a video. At this rate, probably today. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.